Hey guys, welcome to the Job Shadow for Perspective Views. So I'll run you through a bit of an overview of the brief, the job, how we're going to execute it, and then post-processing at the end. So come along for the ride. The client specifically wants two types of shots, daytime shots and dusk shots. It's about 3 o'clock, 3:30-ish. We want to get some really nice blue skies first, after which we will get our dusk shots, go back to those same levels and shoot again. The other thing that's a little bit different on the brief is that the day shots, they want 360-degree images. What they want is essentially shots taken north, northeast, east, southeast, south. So just bang, 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 like that all the way around, 360 degrees of that particular level. Then for the dusk shots, they want a 180-degree view. So it's just mainly the shots looking towards the city. Let's talk about the fun stuff. Let's talk about drones and gear. So this job, we'll be using the Inspire 2 Pro because we've got interchangeable lenses. The client specifically wants us to get really close to the city without it looking too unnatural. So I thought, right, we'll use the Inspire 2. We'll put a 12mm, maybe the 15mm, which is equivalent to about a 35mm on a full frame lens, which then in tail is equivalent to around about what your eye sees. So essentially what they want to see in a brochure is what your eye will be seeing on that level, looking out as the sun sets with champagne in your hand. That view needs to look exactly like your eyes would be seeing. Let me run through the gear real quick with you. So in this big case by HPRC, I did a review on it, which I'll put a link in there somewhere. It's a pretty good case. Yeah, so this is the Inspire 2. Reason why we love this is because it has interchangeable lenses. If you're using a Mavic 2 Pro or a Phantom 4 Pro, that's fine, but you're limited with your field of view. You've got that one lens, that one camera on the drone. You can't go any closer, you can't go any further back. I'm gonna get set up now. You can see some blue skies up ahead, so let's get the day shots done. All right. So let's talk about the brief again. There's a lot of conversations that go back and forth, a lot of emails that go back and forth. The biggest tip is try not to keep everything on email, consolidate the changes, consolidate the brief and put it into some kind of other app that you can arrive on the job site like this and go straight to it. We use Trello. Trello is amazing and it's free. We put all our jobs into Trello. And then we can also upload some attachments. So we've uploaded plans, the elevation plans, what level and the exact height each level is. All right, cool. Let's have a look at the elevation plan. So another really important tip is before you get onto site, what I like to do is review and look over at this plan. What you need to understand is exactly which height you need to be at for each level. Now these plans are great because they give you the distance between each level. So for example, here on the ground, 3,200, so 3.2 meters is the distance from the ground level to level 1. Now half of that is 1,600, so 1.6 meters is effectively the middle of these two floors. Now that is kind of where you want that drone to be in position, in the middle of the two floors. And on the left here, this yellow part here is the meters that the drone needs to be at to capture the height on each of the level. So it's just for me to have a really quick reference that, right, I'm onto level 2 now, fly up to 7.7, bang, shoot, 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 shoot. And also that is essentially where your eye level is. If you're standing on level 2, you're not going to be lying flat on the ground looking out that way. And the same, you're not going to be on the ceiling, you're going to be standing somewhat in the middle. So that's essentially where your eye line is going to be. So now you know what you are going to shoot. Get the pre-flights all done. So get all your settings done while the drone's on the ground. Check your battery, check your SD card, format it out, clean it all up. Take a couple of test shots if you want, review it, make sure it's all good. Then get the drone up in the air and start your shots. I'm keeping an eye on the angle of the aircraft. So what we're doing is we're shooting at AEB, which stands for Automatic Exposure Bracketing. What it does is it takes 3 photos with different exposure meters. So one's slightly below, one's in the middle, and one's a little bit higher. in terms of exposure. The old clapper trick. Basically what I do is I turn the ISO right up to the max, so it's just a white screen, and then hit the shutter button. So what I get is essentially 3 white images. Then when I'm reviewing the files, I know exactly that this is the next level up, so I don't get confused. Drone's landed, and as I mentioned before, everything you see in the white there, or really overexposed, is the break, so I know what's the next level. Otherwise they'll just be too confusing. So obviously from there to there would be 1 level. So essentially that's bracketing. 3 images. Some people do 5. Obviously the more images you have that you merge together, the more detail you have, the more dynamic range, and basically the more power you have to edit and post. Okay, so we've just done the first shoot, which is the daytime shots. We just chewed through maybe about 80% of the first set. So I'm gonna whack everything on charge. So we have constant power coming in. I'll give you a bit of a recap. So right now it is 4 o'clock. We've just finished the daytime shots. All looks pretty good. So we're gonna wait for our dust shot. We're charging up the Inspire batteries, reviewed some of the footage. I've given the client a call as well, just to let him know how it's looking. I had a couple of questions in regards to the view of the city. He wanted the city a little bit closer, so I just needed to get a few clarifications there, just to make sure client expectations are very important, because, you know, it's easier to keep a client than to get new ones. All right, so just had a call back from the client, and I'm very glad I called him because he doesn't like the lens that we used, which was the 12mm. It was too far. The city appeared to be too far to what he liked. So this tells me a couple of things. The first one is we're gonna have to reshoot the day shots again when there's blue skies. And we're gonna use a 45mm lens for the day shots and also the dust shots. The second important thing in this is that when in doubt, always double check, always call the client again. Because if I hadn't have done this, he would have been unhappy with the results. I would have spent so many hours editing. We would have had an unhappy client at the end of the day. I mean, something like this, it wasn't a lack of preparation. It was just that in the middle of our shoot, they changed their mind. So, I mean, these things happen. It's always good to give them a call, because every time you call your client, you're just building that relationship up, you're building that trust up. So that's super important, especially for a client like this, a high-end job like this. It comes down to relationships at the end of the day. Okay, so it is 5:30, sun is setting at 5:44, and we're just about to get the drone up. Sun's looking beautiful. The sky is looking fantastic. So basically I'm gonna start about here, take photos all the way like this with about 20% overlap, all the way to about there. So the horizon's in the middle, then I'm gonna shoot a little bit more of the sky, go all the way across, like so, and then underneath as well, all the way across. All right guys, so we are in the studio right now, and I'm about to take you through the post-processing part. I'll whiz through this really quickly because it is a long process, but if you want to see the full video, check out our online courses. I will take you through this process in a lot more detail. So the very first thing we do is we start assembling and sorting. So right now all the images are just in one big file on your SD card. We need to move each level into their individual folders. Now the best way to do this is to use Adobe Bridge. If you've got it, it loads up RAWs very quickly, and basically what you're doing is you're moving the images into each of those levels. Okay, so you remember when we were out in the field and I told you to do the little clapper trick where it creates 3 really overexposed images? This is what it looks like now. So this will help you break off each level, so you can pretty much go, right, this is the start and the end of each level, move that into level 3, level 4, move that into all the different folders. Okay, so after you've completed the wrangling process, the next is we need to create the panoramas. Because they're AEB as well, they've been bracketed, we need to merge those images and also stitch them into this panorama. It sounds complicated, but it's actually very quick in Lightroom, and I'll show you how we do that right now. This particular shot we're working on is the shot that's looking into the city. there's about 40 images right here. So essentially what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be getting those 3 AEB images, we're gonna be merging them together. Then we're gonna be stitching all the merged images into a really nice big panorama. This is CPU hungry, so if you have a slow computer, you might struggle a little bit. So just think about that. Otherwise, maybe time to upgrade. Now we're gonna select all the images that we want to edit. Then we're gonna go up to Photo Merge and select HDR Panorama. There's a few other options. There's HDR, there's just Panorama, but because we're editing HDR images and we're stitching it in a panorama, that's the one we click. Once you do that, it will take a little while to create a preview for you, but essentially what you need to do then is select a projection on the right, and what will happen is it will build a preview for you. Now you'll notice there's some white edges where it's kind of struggled to find images to fill the gaps, but thanks to Lightroom, there's a new feature here where it's called Fill Edges. Select that, and what it will do is automatically fill those edges up. So as you can see, it looks quite clean. There's quite a bit of dark area on the bottom, but we'll get into the editing and the touching up in a second. After that, if you're happy with it, just hit merge, and it will start creating the panorama. So this is the panorama. As you can see, it's huge. It's 19,000, almost 20,000 pixels in length by 5,000 pixels. It's a very, very big image, but you can see the detail is really good. You can zoom right in. There's a lot of information behind there that your eyes can't see, obviously, because we've merged these 3 images. So that's it. Now we're gonna get into the fun stuff, the editing. Really important before you start is go back to your brief. Now, I don't think I mentioned this, but what the client wanted was a bit of orange and purple in the sky. So that was his specific instructions with the edit. So we're gonna go to the right. We're gonna adjust the exposure a little bit higher, bring down the highlights, and bump up the shadows just a touch. Okay, so we're gonna use the graduated filter. We're gonna darken the sky a little bit, and this will bring out the colors. Drop the exposure down just a tad, and I'm gonna increase the temperature and the tint a little bit. Now you can already see some nice orange and purples coming out there in the sky. Then we're gonna do the same, and we're gonna select the dodge or the lighten part, and we're gonna create the foreground or below the horizon to be a little bit brighter. Now we don't want it to be too bright because you'll get that really gross oversaturated HDR look. Also, make sure your horizons are straight. I'm gonna go down to the tone curve, and I'm just gonna crunch the blacks a little bit more and make the highlights pop out a little bit. So just getting that really nice S curve happening. I'm gonna try and see if I can get the sun to kind of pop through behind the church tower there. I'm going to use the ellipse tool and create a bit of a sun flare there. I'm going to go down to the sharpening section. Now, first you need to mask out the section by holding Command. Now, everything you see in white will be sharp, and what I'm looking for is to kind of really make the outline of the buildings nice and crisp. You can see the difference there. That was looking pretty good. Keep playing with the overall temperature a little bit. So I'm going to bring up the warmth in the image, almost like a summery sunset look. Now I'm going to use the brush and slowly start isolating some parts that I want to be either darker or light. So you can change the diameter of the brush, and then you can slowly start brushing out some of the areas, making it brighter, making some parts pop a little bit more than the others. And already you can see the images looking quite nice. You know how I said before, the client specifically wanted the sky to be a little bit more purpley. So I'll show you how we get that. We select the graduated filter that we used for the sky. I'm gonna drop the exposure a little bit, and also now I'm gonna change the tint on it. Now the tint, I'm gonna move the slider towards the purple end, and as you can see now, it's just starting to creep in, that nice purple. And that's what he wanted, so I hope he will be happy with it. And that's basically it. I'm gonna do some final touches, make sure the overall image looks kind of quite nice, and even if you're adding a bit of purple in the sky, make sure there's a touch of purple in the shadows as well. So for the sake of this video, I've just whizzed through it, but I'm gonna touch up a little bit more of this image and just make sure it's really, really nice before we send it off to the client. But that's it. Thanks for coming along in the job shadow. I hope that helps. So every job is different, and it's really important to not beat yourself up over it if it doesn't go to plan. You learn from it, and you'll often find that on your next shoot, you'll know exactly what to do. You'll learn from today's mistakes, essentially, and you'll just be a better pilot and a better photographer from learning on the job like this. Stay tuned, don't forget, check out those courses as well. Plenty more job shadows coming up in different surroundings, different settings, different industries. So looking forward to see you guys in the next one. Ciao.